When Chinese newspapers write about American air power, the language is rarely casual. It is often charged with unease, sometimes cloaked in national pride, yet beneath the rhetoric lies a recognition of overwhelming force. The United States Air Force is not simply a branch of the military. It is an institution that projects dominance across oceans. For Beijing, this reality is sobering. The statistics alone are daunting. America operates thousands of combat aircraft, supported by a global network of bases, carriers, and allies. China, though rapidly modernizing, cannot yet match the depth and breadth of this aerial presence. Chinese analysts often note that, while their new J-20 stealth fighter attracts headlines, the U.S. fields not dozens but hundreds of F-22s and F-35s, backed by decades of stealth experience. The scale difference is not marginal, it is existential. What unsettles Chinese media most is not a single weapon but the system itself. American bombers refuel mid-air from tankers that can reach any theater. Surveillance aircraft map skies in real time. Drones extend vision and strike options. In Beijing's editorials, the phrase "system of systems" appears often, a reluctant acknowledgement that U.S. air power is not a collection of planes but a living network. This is why reports describe the American presence in the Pacific as a shadow that cannot be ignored. Every exercise, every flyover, reminds China that in the skies above, it is still playing catch-up. For Chinese strategists, the word that carries the most weight is stealth. American stealth aircraft represent an advantage that China admits is difficult to counter. Newspapers in Beijing often describe the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning II not just as fighters, but as ghosts in the sky, planes that slip through radar nets designed at enormous cost. The anxiety deepened when B-2 Spirit bombers flew missions near the Pacific, covered by tankers and escorts. Chinese commentators noted that these aircraft could strike critical targets before defenses even realized they were in danger. The psychological impact is as significant as the military one when an enemy cannot see you. It cannot fight you effectively. Even the development of China's J-20 stealth fighter has not erased this unease. Chinese outlets cautiously praise the jet, but concede it lacks the combat record of American stealth aircraft. The U.S. Air Force has flown stealth missions since the 1990s, refining doctrine and building trust in the technology. China is still writing its first chapters. Editorials stress a sobering point: the gap is not about one airplane, but decades of operational knowledge. Every exercise, every deployment shows that American stealth is not merely hardware, it is experience made airborne. For Beijing, this is the most unsettling truth. If stealth is the symbol of America's invisible edge, then aircraft carriers represent its visible might. For Chinese commentators, the sight of massive U.S. carriers sailing through the Pacific is both awe-inspiring and alarming. Articles in Beijing newspapers often note that a single carrier group can field more aircraft than the entire air force of some nations. For China, which has only a handful of carriers, this imbalance is a sobering reminder of how far it still has to go. Chinese media frequently highlight the mobility of these floating airbases. Unlike land airfields, which are fixed and vulnerable, carriers bring air power directly to contested waters. They arrive uninvited, establish presence, and project influence. Editorials admit that this freedom of movement creates dilemmas for Chinese defense planners. A base can be mapped, but a carrier can appear tomorrow off almost any coastline. The scale is equally daunting. Nuclear-powered carriers can operate for decades, launch hundreds of sorties in a single day, and remain at sea for months. Surrounding destroyers and submarines form protective shields. Chinese newspapers grudgingly acknowledge that to challenge such a force would require not one weapon, but a complete transformation of their naval and air strategy. Thus, carriers are described as airfields that move like storms. For Beijing, they embody a reality that even rapid modernization cannot erase. America's sky power is also sea power, and the two are inseparable. What Chinese media fear most is not only the aircraft themselves, but the invisible web that binds them together. American air power is more than wings and engines, it is satellites, sensors, data links, and command systems fused into one seamless architecture. Chinese newspapers often warn that this system of systems gives the U.S. Air Force an advantage no single rival can neutralize. Editorials describe how American pilots fight as part of a vast digital orchestra. AWACS aircraft monitor the sky like conductors, distributing real-time intelligence. Satellites provide constant surveillance. Secure data links allow fighters bombers, drones, and ships to share a single picture of the battlefield. For Chinese observers, this integration is deeply unsettling. It means that even if one plane is defeated, the network continues to fight. By contrast, Chinese forces are still struggling to achieve such cohesion. Reports quietly note difficulties in creating reliable joint operations between air, naval, and missile units. Jamming or cyber attacks are often mentioned as countermeasures. Yet commentators admit these tools remain untested against America's mature networks. This is why Chinese writers describe American air power as a cloud of dominance. It is everywhere at once, watching, listening, and ready to strike. For Beijing, the real fear is that America's strength is not just in machines, but in connections links that turn individual weapons into an unstoppable force. For Chinese commentators, the ultimate concern is not merely what America possesses today, but what it may unveil tomorrow. The U.S. Air Force does not stand still. Every year, new experiments appear: hypersonic weapons that promise to shrink distance and time, autonomous swarms of drones designed to overwhelm defenses, artificial intelligence embedded into command, systems that shorten the gap between detection and decision. Editorials in Beijing describe the challenge as chasing a moving horizon. The horizon is always just out of reach, and with each passing year, it seems to stretch even further away. Reports often acknowledge that America's defense budget, larger than the combined military spending of many major powers, provides resources that China cannot easily match. Yet the deeper unease lies elsewhere. What troubles Chinese analysts most is the culture of innovation itself. The United States tests ideas, discards failures, refines concepts, and accelerates those that work at a pace that slower rivals cannot keep up with. It is this rhythm, this cycle of trial and reinvention that unnerves Beijing. For Chinese strategists, the lesson is unsettling. U.S. air power is not static hardware, it is a process in motion. While other nations labor to close yesterday's gap, America has already created tomorrow's. One editorial compared it to a race where the finish line keeps moving forward. By the time a competitor arrives, the race has already shifted into a new lane. Thus, Chinese media often end their analyses with words of caution to underestimate American air power is to invite disaster. It is not the sheer number of planes, bombers, or carriers that most alarms them. It is the momentum of constant reinvention, the ability to combine resources, technology, and daring into new forms of power that fuels their unease. A single stealth fighter may be counted, but the culture of endlessly designing the next generation cannot be easily quantified. This perspective helps explain why even skeptical voices in Beijing avoid dismissing American strength outright. They may criticize Washington's politics. They may doubt the sustainability of U.S. alliances, but when it comes to the skies, they speak with caution. Air dominance, they admit, is not a trophy the United States won once and then placed on a shelf. It is a living system, renewed with every experiment and every innovation. And so, as we close this series, one truth becomes clear: America's dominance in the skies is not frozen in time. It is alive, dynamic, and evolving. For rivals, that reality is daunting. For observers, it is a reminder of how power in the modern world is measured not only in numbers, but in momentum, imagination, and the willingness to change. To our readers and viewers, thank you for following this exploration. The discussion of air power is more than strategy. It is a window into how nations measure fear, strength, and survival. In every radar trace and every contrail, one can glimpse not only military competition, but also the larger story of human ambition and insecurity. We hope this series has offered clarity and perspective. Until next time, remember, the skies are never silent, and history is always being written above us.